This webinar will cover charting of an encounter. In this case, you can begin by clicking on the scheduler and coming over and finding Mr. Kenneth Test. By highlighting his name, and you can right-click, you can begin creating an encounter there. You can also highlight Mr. Test's name and then left-click and click Encounter to begin. Additionally, you can click on the patient's name, or you can click on the patient's chart to begin charting directly from the patient's chart. Before we begin, I'd like to draw your attention to the area known as Visit Reason. As you could see, that area has been pre-populated with information about the patient's visit. While the information was not populated there, by clicking over and going to the medical assistant dashboard, you can see that the information is there as well. And it's there because the medical assistant populated the area with the field known as History of Present Illness. That history of present illness provided the medical assistant with questions they would ask. Coming back over to the physician dashboard, you're going to see that the physician dashboard has the same link known as HPI, and the information that was populated on the medical assistant dashboard is also populated on the physician dashboard. Let's begin by creating a new encounter. At this point, we can use the drop down and find, in this case, existing new patient. Clicking on existing patient, we can then click Start New Visit. When that opens, you will notice something. You'll see that the history of present illness that we entered from the dashboard is here as well. The reason for that is that I have previously embedded the HPI link into my encounter. By clicking on Actions and Editing Document Template, you will notice that I have already previously embedded the HPI link in my template, bringing forward the information from the dashboard. The Edit Document Template will allow you to put in any links or fields that can be found on the right-hand side of the screen. Remember, you can modify any template on the fly. By clicking on Physical Examination, you'll notice on the right-hand side of the screen that all of the mini templates that are under the physical examination are brought up at this time to use. Clicking over to Vascular will allow you to put in your vascular exam. By changing the drop down to another option such as X-rays will allow you to put in your X-ray template and then be able to answer the questions associated with that. Moving on, you can also scroll down and then enter in other templates such as templates from your orthopedic exam. By dropping down and clicking on Ortho Exam, you could click on the necessary mini templates that would be associated with your examination at this time. Clicking on Plantar Fascial Palpation would drop that in there as well. Once you're done with all of the entry of your mini templates, at this point, you can very simply go back to each and every yellow hyperlink, and clicking on it will bring up your choices that you will click on for those respective mini templates. And as you go on, you just continue to click on all of the choices for that specific mini template. In this case, we demonstrated the radiology mini template that we bring up that shows all of the different choices of those mini templates. As you can see, once we click on plantar calcaneal spur, you'll notice that we've embedded the hyperlink for hotspots. In this case, we will change our view to lateral bones and be able to click over and indicate the right calcaneus. Moving on to our additional templates, going on and clicking on the respective choices allows you to just move on to each and every one that you've chosen. Once you finish clicking on your mini templates, you're now going to move on to clicking on the visit problems that are associated with your visit. By clicking on the hyperlink for visit problems, you've launched into the Smartsheet 10 technology, which houses all of your diagnosis. By simply typing out the code and hitting add, you're adding those specific diagnosis codes to not only the active problems for that patient, but in this case, it's being added to the visit problems or the encounter for that day. Again, moving on, you'll simply type out all of your diagnosis codes and enter them in. Again, noticing that the active problems are also the visit problems for that day. At this point, you will click Save and then be able to move on to your plan. By clicking on the hyperlink known as Plan, will then bring up the mini templates that are associated with your plan for this encounter. Again, being able to preload a CPT code such as an office visit or typing it in will load it right into your templates. Using the drop down, we'll be able to choose any specific one that you'd like if you need to enter it in. In this case, we can very easily use the drop down to choose the template that is associated with casting and orthosis, and by clicking on that, you'll be able to get the drop down that is associated with the plantar fascial night splint. Once you do that, you will see that the entire mini template loads itself in. Moving on, you can very easily then simply type certain codes such as 73620, which will then load the mini template that was associated with that. The mini templates were covered in a previous webinar, and the embedding of codes was covered as well. At this point, by clicking on the invoice button, you're able to now modify any of the CPT codes that have been previously entered in by either the number or embedding. By clicking on the charges and getting the charges edit mode, you're able to now enter in the diagnosis codes that have been previously entered. By using the drop down, you very easily can then enter in the ICD-9 codes into the proper fields with that specific line item. In addition to be able to use the drop down, by simply clicking in the box, you are also able to simply type the number that is associated with the diagnosis and it will populate. In this case, by clicking on the box and pressing number 2 puts in diagnosis number 2. By simply clicking on the next box and typing the number 3 on your keyboard populates diagnosis number 3. You can then move over to very simply use the drop down for your modifiers that you need for each line. You also can very simply click in the box and then simply type the exact code you need. In this case, by typing RT puts it in. Then, a little different from TRAKnet 2.0, you need to save each individual line. The reason that we needed to do it this way is to prepare our program for use within the cloud. Clicking on each individual line and saving it then saves each individual line item. You then have the ability to then sign and close your encounter, digitally signing it. At this point, you have not clicked Bill Ready in the bottom left corner, and your biller has the ability to go back in and modify and check that bill if needed. Thank you for watching the charting webinar. Please view the billing webinar to see where we've left off in the billing process.